Hi, this is Ken Hance. I hope you enjoy the podcast. The saying of the day is, when it's all been said and done, there'll be a lot more said than done. And I was listening to a debate in Congress, and I was seated next to Dan Glickman from Kansas, and he told me that. And I was watching it, and I mean, he was right. And a lot of the time in business, you'll have meetings, and you'll have, I don't like meetings, and I've always said that, a meeting will it can go on, and you don't get anything done. But most meetings, most congressional debates, when it's all been said and done, there'll be a lot more said than done. I think one of the funniest stories that I ever heard, that I know of, has to do with Dr. Denton Cooley, one of the great heart surgeons of all time. And he and Dr. DeBakey were not friends. They were enemies, and they were both in Houston, and it was always a race to see who had the best stats. But Cooley was involved as a witness in a lawsuit. And the lawyer asked him, said, Dr. Cooley, a lot of people say that you're the best heart surgeon in the world by far. And he said, yes, sir, I say that. And he said, well, are you saying that now? He said, yes, I'm saying I'm the best heart surgeon in the world. He said, isn't that a little braggadocious? And Dr. Cooley said, yes, but I'm under oath. And kind of broke the moment in the courtroom.
Do juries laugh at stuff like that?
Yeah, they'll laugh sometimes. I had a lady on the jury one time. They were trying to say that my witness had said such and such, and this lady in the jury box said, he didn't say that. And it broke the momentum the guy was trying to build. It just, and the judge said, you're not to be speaking to the lawyers. You're just to listen. She said, well, he didn't say that.
Just blurted it out.
Yeah.
Wow.
She had a kid about the same age as this witness. Mm-hmm. She thought the lawyer was trying to hound him, and lawyers, you got to be careful, because if you get real zealous, some of the people on the jury may take a liking to the witness that you were beating up on. Mm-hmm. Now, there have been times there'll be a witness that they want you to beat up on, mm-hmm. but you got to use good judgment, and understand people. Everyone can get to know the law, or enough of it to get by, but you got to be able to know people and pick juries, and do things like that. In campaigns, every few years you'll see somebody that will die in a plane crash. Campaigning. They think they got to make that one last statement or one last speech. And I've had probably 10 in my career in politics. I might have had 10 or 15 speaking engagement I canceled because of weather. Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to fly in that kind of weather. But, probably the most tragic story, Jerry Litton, a congressman, was running for U.S. Senate in Missouri, and he won. And so his pilot, a friend of his, was going to fly him and his wife and his 2 children to Kansas City to make his acceptance speech. And they lost an engine on takeoff, killed them all. And a friend of mine was in charge of the victory party in Kansas City, and he had to get up and tell them what had happened. Oh. And the crowd just went crazy. They just couldn't believe it. And tough deal. But, my mother took me out to the airport one time in Dimmitt, Texas, where I'd grown up and been born. And that a pilot was coming in to pick me up and take me to Odessa to make a speech. And I see him coming in, and there's bad crosswinds. And he's missing it, and I went, oh, my God. And he missed that field, and he missed the landing strip, and he wound up crashing in a cornfield. My mother said, why is he landing over there? And I said, he crashed. She said, oh, my word, he crashed. And she drives me over, and we get close, and I get out, and he comes running up, and he said, I'm sorry, are you Congressman Hance? And I said, yes. He said, I'm sorry, let me see if I can rent a plane here. And I said, no, I've decided I'm just going to drive. I have a rule of thumb. I don't fly with people unless they fly for a living. And one exception, a friend of mine in Waco, Kerry Hobbs, and he flew off aircraft carriers. And I've been on aircraft carriers before when I was in Congress and looked at them, watched, see how they operate. Look, anyone that flew off an aircraft carrier, they're a pilot. They're a top-notch pilot. You can fly with them if they're just flying part-time. But the ones that get you in trouble are dentists and doctors and lawyers and people that, they fly once a month and they'll forget something. They'll be thinking about a case or something. And if they don't fly for a living, don't fly with them. Because it may be your last flight. Remember this when you're flying in private planes. If you got a pilot, don't help him. And one time we got into some bad weather, and it was bouncing around, and I edged up the pilot. We were in a King Air, really a great plane. And I said, we can turn around and go back. He said, sit down and shut up. And he was flying it. He didn't want me helping him. I went, okay.
I bet the only person before that to say that was your mother.
Yeah.
And no one since.
I mean, he apologized for later, and I said, no, I was worried that we were getting too far into it, and I was going to let you know I don't have to make that next stop. But one time I was flying from Atlanta. I was flying from Atlanta to Pittsburgh. I've been in Atlanta, made a speech, and I was going to Pittsburgh to make a speech. And we got into some rough weather. And I had a middle seat and the guy in the aisle seat. So, well, it's only 23 more miles to Pittsburgh. And I said, how do you know that? And he said, that's what the road sign says. Oh, okay. That gets my attention. When I announced for office to run for state senate, I didn't have any name ID.
Meaning people that no name recognition.
Yeah. But if people think that they know a lot of people, well, you don't. And so I go to Seminole, Texas, and they had a Meet the Candidates night, high school auditorium. And the MC, was a little disorganized. And I'd given him a card and wrote down some things to introduce me when I got up. And so I'm off stage. I'm up next. And he's, looking around in his pockets and he has lost my notes. And so he finally he doesn't know my name. He doesn't have it. He goes, come on out here, boy, and tell them who you are. Okay. I knew right then I had to work on name ID. At that same event, there was a speech teacher was helping, taught speech and debate and things like that. And they were helping run the event. And that he told me, he said, we got a guy running for county commissioner. He's scared to death. I went over and the guy said, he told me, he said, I'm literally, my knees are knocking. And he said, I don't even give the prayer in church. I've never made a speech in my life. And I said, well, just, you probably being county commissioner, you want to keep the roads in good. He said, that's what I'm running for. I want the roads in better shape. I said, just go out there and tell them you're going to keep the roads in better shape and you'd appreciate their vote and everything. He calmed down a little. He was still scared. The speech teacher came by. We were getting ready to start. And the speech teacher said, break a leg. And he said, fuck you. And I said, no. Break a leg means that means we're about to get started. But isn't that hilarious? He was wound up tighter than a tick, and he jumped all over that. He thought the guy was being a smart ass to him or something.
Did he manage to get up and make a speech?
He did okay. He said, I'm going to grade the roads, and I'll be honest, and I won't spend more than we have. And he did okay. It wasn't Abraham Lincoln, at Gettysburg. It wasn't the Gettysburg Address, but it wasn't the Seminole Address either. We had congressional hearings in Salina, Kansas one time. And I think what had happened was during the Lincoln Day break. And the chairman of the committee went to Hawaii and held hearings. And the vice chairman went to Puerto Rico to hold hearings. This in February. And they sent me and Pat Roberts, who's now a U.S. Senator from Kansas, great guy, sent us to Kansas, and I think Charlie Stenholm from Stanford, I think he was along with us. But old hearings in February with about 500 mad farmers. And so we have the hearing all day, and we're flying Frontier Airlines, I believe it's Frontier, out of Salina to get back to Kansas City or St. Louis, wherever we were going, catch a plane back to D.C. And so the captain, we all got, and there were probably 10, 12 people on the plane. It's a turboprop. Wasn't a jet. We go to the end of the runway, and he revved the engines up. And then we go back to the terminal. And there's one flight attendant, and I motioned for her to come over, and she came over, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, and she'd been on the phone with him. Have a little phone there. They can talk to the captain. She said, "The captain heard something wrong with one of the motors." And I said, "Are we going to change planes?" And she said, "No, sir, we're going to change captains." So we get one that can't hear that crap. And I said, I have some good answers for people. I got tired just giving the old standard answer, and I don't know whatever happened to her, but she was quick on her feet. Nope, we're going to get one that can't hear that crap. Off we go. The only story I've ever told in a campaign that made the front page of the New York Times was when I was running against President Bush. And it was a story, he had and I'll tell this at the end, he had a good comeback. He eventually got him a pretty good comeback, so I had to quit telling the story. But he'd get up and speak, and I'd get up and speak, or vice versa. I knew what he was going to say. He knew what I was going to say, And so I got up and told that one summer when I was in college, I was working for the agriculture department, measuring land and seeing who had planted within their allotments, and summer job. And that a guy pulled up in a big old Mercedes, kind of like the one you drove before the campaign started, George. And I said it had Connecticut tags. In fact, you were born in Connecticut. He later said one time I said that, and he said, "Yeah, I wanted to be born in Texas, but my mother happened to be in Connecticut at the time, and I felt like I just need to be near her." And the crowd really liked that. So, he had a good comeback. But I said, this guy pulled up, and he asked me where a certain ranch was. And I said, "You go about 3 miles north and turn east, and go a couple miles, then turn north and go about a mile, and you'll come to a cattle guard. And at the cattle guard, turn left, and you're right there, less than a half mile." And the guy rolled his window up in that big old Mercedes, those Connecticut tags, and started off, and he stopped and backed up. And he said, "Hey, young man, what color uniform that cattle guard have on?" So I told that story. And Bush later told that story when he was president. He was in Montana and told that story on somebody. And so we laugh about that.
That is our episode for this week. A reminder, like and subscribe to this podcast, and you will be notified when we release a new episode.